Good evening, everybody. Hope you're having a great night. It's a cold one here in YYC, but we're going to have a 22 temperature warm up overnight, which is pretty awesome. Evan, I already have to wander off for a quick second and I'll be right back. But if you want to see some nice welcome, warming opening words, I'll be right back.
Yeah. Welcome everybody to what should be a pretty baller tasting. Definitely a lot of Islay in the room from the looks of it. This is one that I know myself and Kurt and Andrew have been watching on the calendar and waiting to come up because all three of us wanted to be in on it for the virtual tasting itself, just so we could try these drams. Harmony wanted to be in on it as well, but unfortunately she is a little bit under the weather, so she can't make it. Marty has joined us as well. I think Lee might be in on the action, who is the importer of these fine drams at some point. It should be a pretty cool lineup. I think Kurt has been typing away madly to give you guys the quick and dirty order that we decided on. So as Kurt's typed in, we're going to start with the Bruichladdich, move on to the Bunnahabhain, the two unpeated or more unpeated of the lineup to start. Then going into a little bit more peat with the Bowmore. Middle, the fourth dram will be the oldest of the night with the Caol Ila 40. And then on to the Trebon, that's not a Trebon, with the Ardbeg 19. And finishing on the two Laphroaigs. First up will be the 23-year-old, and then we'll end on the youngest whiskey of the night that is pretty big and bold. So that one should be a fun one to cap everything off with.
Yeah, that is, I mean, we included it for a reason. Lee had to sweet talk us into bringing that one in because we were like, yeah, it's pretty pricey.
Yeah.
But then we tried it and we were like, oh man, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah, we weren't happy with them because of the pricing, and then we were even less happy with them because it's a really damn good whiskey.
Yeah, it's a tough place to be. Lee's in here and he might chime in from time to time, but apparently he's got an unstable connection and may not be able to chat. Kurt, on the other hand, who's with us, can't chat because I forgot to make him a co-host. So now he's a co-host. And Marty, if you want to speak at any point here, you're a co-host too. You're welcome to chime in. Jeff didn't want me to unmute Kurt, which is fair. But we did because why not? Yeah, Kurt, you're probably the biggest Islay fan of anyone here. Safe to say this is a tasting that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this one for a long time. This was sort of the, the tasting of the year for me. We had a couple of really, really cool ones this year. Some of the Andrew's Ego tastings were fun to do, and the Glen Farquhar were high on my list, but this was definitely the highlight for the year for me.
I've been looking forward to this too, and we've done at least one of these already. I know we did one with the 2020 Kinship Collection. Maybe we did one with the 2019 too, but like, who would remember? Like, that was during COVID and it's all lost to the mists of time. As apparently so seems to be my dog again, so I'll be right back.
Sounds good. Lee, just type in the chat if you want to be made a co-host here so you can chime in with your thoughts along the way as well. You might have a bit of background info that we don't have on how these are put together and chosen. I'm not sure. While we're waiting for Andrew here, we might as well just start slowly diving into these and start with nosing the fantastic Bruichladdich here. 29 years old. I wish I had the vintage date on this because I think they do give a vintage date. I'll see if I can look that up.
It's not very often we get to see really cool high stated Bruichladdich anymore. There's a couple of Peaky that have hit our shores lately, but other than that, I can't remember the last time.
Yeah, it would have been Signatory before that, and those seem to have dried up for the most part.
Yeah. This is old school, like white Mackay Bruichladdich, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've had some there. I remember there being some really wacky ones from Signatory where it was all like I remember Sean's tasting note on one of them was margarita pizza with where it was like tomatoes and pizza dough and all over the map on that side of things.
This
Yeah,
is
the blackguards are typically high 20s as well, Jeff.
this is like those white pizzas, like not pizza with tomato sauce.
Like an Alfredo type.
Yeah, I don't know. Is it Alfredo that they put on there? I'm not really sure, but like it's the white sauce when you get the white sauce on a pizza. Maybe with some mushrooms, like some nice shiitake mushrooms, arugula.
It does have a bit of pepper on there.
Now, does anyone actually know anything about this bottle? I suppose I should pull these up from our website. Because, there are details to be had, although they're limited. For some reason, they don't give you everything. Like they don't give you, I think they don't give you maybe the vintage. So what have we got here? They give you a tasting note. So we're on the Bruichladdich, 45.4%. It's a 29 year, but we don't have a vintage on it. They talk about soft fruits, honey, hint of iodine with sea salt, wonderfully balanced. They're not really mentioning any of those cheesy, dry, funky tones, which are definitely there.
I definitely find it more bready and more like just freshly milled grains and stuff than I do find it really cheesy here. It doesn't have that same sort of lactic laddie note I typically find. Maybe a little bit, but it's faint.
Oh, I don't know. I've got some nice melted buffalo mozzarella here too.
I don't know what that is, but I want some now.
Well, it's when it's the real fancy Neapolitan pizzas where they tear up little strips of mozzarella and sprinkle it on, and then it all melts.
Where shredding it doesn't require a cheese shredder, essentially.
Empirical only. You'll have to bring some in, Andrew.
Yeah, he's on his way to Napoli right now.
Walter's the boss there. Walter wears the pants in that house.
That's right.
Cool nose. There's some there's some almost grapefruity tones going on there. It's really kind of muted. It's got that slightly sweet and sour thing going on.
Yeah, that translates onto the palate too.
Is it?
Where it's like grapefruit or even lighter than that, citrusy on the citrus notes, like into pomelo territory. Or a touch of yuzu. It does have this nice creaminess, just a touch of spice on the palate. This is a pretty darn soft dram when it comes down to it for me. Even you don't get a whole lot of that coastal saline or salt. No idea where this was actually warehoused over the years. So warehouses may not have had any influence on that.
I'm getting a little bit of that leathery note and a little bit of that cheesy note now that Andrew was talking about. It's just faint, nothing crazy. Not like the new school of laddie where it's baby milk puke kind of.
It's silky. It reminds me of a more elegant version of. Do you remember that 22-year-old laddie that came in the aquamarine tin?
Yeah,
it's like a little less
fantastic.
A bit more tropical, and it has a little bit more funk to it.
Yeah, that's a good call. It does have a lot of that note. The 22 I recall being a little bit more barley driven, and definitely having some more of that wood, as you said. But this one does amp up those tropical tones.
Oh man, it's juicy.
There's a slight musky aftershave kind of note to it, like men's cologne kind of thing going on in the background. Just a musky kind of heavier tone.
I think that translates to the palate as well with that bitterness that's on the finish.
I think with a few guesses, I could maybe hit Bruichladdich, but I don't think it would be my first guess, to be honest.
No. which is crazy because it is a very spirit driven dram. Like there's not a whole lot of wood influence to it.
No, and like knowing it's Bruichladdich, you can kind of go, oh, okay, I get it.
Mhm.
It's easy to put your thumb on at that point, but I think blind, I don't know if that'd be my first or second guess on this one.
I mean, yeah, the one thing that's interesting is like you can get a little bit of a maritime note from it, but it's very subtle. And you know, I could be fooled into thinking that this might be something like an old Glen Talker's refill or a Milton Dutch.
Fair.
Well, that just
great.
yeah, that touch of saltiness there, it almost goes into like for wine, into Muscadet territory, where you get this Muscadet. Sometimes you get this like it's a hyper crisp white wine, little bit floral, a touch of fruit, but almost like mineral driven and steely in style with just a touch of saltiness or saline to it as well.
Mhm. Evan, look at you making the obscure wine references.
No, unless there's someone that's a Somali in here, nobody's going to call me on it. So I could have just made all that up.
That's fair. Yeah, well, I think it's a great starter. It's a great dram. I mean, you would hope that, I mean, and you know, you'd hope that they wouldn't put anything into this collection because it's not inexpensive, that they didn't feel it was like Rockstar. And you know, you'd have to think that like because of their connections to Islay, because of their, you know, prominence as an independent bottler over the years, that hopefully they've still got a decent stock of some older malts. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a great starter. I'm glad we put this in front of the Buna because I think it's just, it's so spirit driven. It's so light and clean.
On a geeky note for you, Andrew, we've all heard this story a whole bunch of times about, you know, when Jim and Mark took over the distillery, they had to re-rack everything that was in there. And, you know, I think a lot of people go in and say that because it makes themselves look good as rescuing these whiskeys. But the slightly kind of cheesy funkiness there, do you think that's sort of like reflects as to maybe poorer casks used at the time and only really succeeding through age?
Well, you mean in that the oak eventually like hides that cheesy note?
Like I think more along the lines of this seems like a really, really naked Bruichladdich from a time before Mark Rainier and everybody would have been re-racking stuff. Who knows when this actually changed hands as a parcel of whiskey? Probably long time ago. So it probably wasn't re-racked, right? So this is probably the original barrel, and it kind of has a little bit of funkiness. I think if it would have stayed in the Bruichladdich hands, it probably would have been finished with something.
Yeah, they would have replaced the cheese with wine.
Probably.
Yeah. Well, and Kurt, then I think it asks a bit of a leading question as to whether re-racking it would have been for the best. I mean, if you were going to bottle it at 12, 15 years of age, then maybe it would have. But I mean, I think that what makes this whiskey cool is that it is sort of naked. And, you know, Bruichladdich had all those releases where they're like talking about their DNA. Like, I don't know if you remember back in the day, like for a long time, it was all about DNA, the DNA of what Bruichladdich is. And, you know, at the time I lapped it up like everybody, but they were acing and finishing things in these wet wine casks.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the DNA of something when you've layered Sauterne over top of it, or Chateau, you know, Chateau Aubryon, Bordeaux? Like, what is the DNA? Is it wine?
Yeah. But I think we should be clear too. I think all three of us that are doing most of the nattering on tonight have a proclivity for just clean ex-bourbon casks with a lot of age, hoggies or bourbons, clean cereal-driven type of whiskeys.
Yeah, I've definitely drank the refill cask Kool-Aid on that.
Marty, what are your thoughts? Are you team refill cask or are you team let's ace the shit out of these things?
Careful, your job's on the line, buddy.
I like a lot of the results from first use cask, but I don't see a need to have it, you know, dripping wet with what was in it before.
Yeah.
So, and
Well,
you know,
Marty,
some of the whiskeys we do get, it, especially some of these sherried young ones, looks like there must have been a bottle of sherry left in there.
well, Marty's my longest suffering coworker, I think. And Marty will remember the days when we'd get Murray McDavid releases and they'd be like shades of pink.
Oh yeah.
Purple.
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't even dumping them before they put the whiskey in. They just put whiskey right into the barrel.
Like
But-
Bruichladdich even had a pink one years ago too.
Well, and a bunch of the old, stodgy guys got mad and they like accused them of making whiskey for gays. It was really quite unsightly. But that wouldn't be the first time that angry white old men got mad about something that happened with whiskey.
Just goes to show that Bruichladdich was woke before it was cool.
Yeah.
I actually launched Bruichladdich when that all happened. I worked for them at the time, and they didn't spoon feed you the ace stuff. They really hammered that home, that it was the way of the future, and we're running out of oak, and we're the innovators. We're changing the world one pink whiskey at a time. And that the one that was being marketed to gays was that first 20-year-old release in the Morbedra cask was it was something else. Like the funniest part about that turnover, going away from peated, which was with the Jim Beam owned it, to unpeated and showing the DNA and the naked expression. The original literature that we got from Bruichladdich said this: we make a 10-year-old, we make a 15-year-old, and we make a 20-year-old. There will be no line extensions.
Yeah.
Bold letters. And that lasted about 6 months.
Yeah.
It was nuts. We could not get the stuff fast enough. It was just crazy.
I remember one time getting mad at them because we had 24 Bruichladdich on the shelf, and my shelving back then was less than a quarter of what it is now. And all of a sudden they're like, good news, we've got 12 new expressions. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
He was so mad because of the gun we put in his mouth to make him buy those, and all those mortgage payments that happened afterwards.
Well, it wasn't my money back then, so it wasn't the money. It was just that I didn't have space for them. And Bruichladdich already took up a bottle and a half worth of real estate. So now, that extra 12 bottles was actually 18 in terms of spacing.
It wasn't just acing that they were innovators in. It was taking up shelf space as well.
Yeah. But Lee, I mean, you probably know this too. I mean, a big part of and overcommitments was probably part of the reason that Freehouse got sunk. Was they drank the Kool-Aid, they loaded up on all these Bruichladdich, they got promises from the big boys like Depot, and then they didn't pull anything. And all of a sudden they're sitting on hundreds of cases of Laddie Bordeaux finishes, cognac finishes, Armagnac finishes. It was nuts.
I don't want to speak ill of the dead. That company is no longer around, but I did happen to leave right before that collapse, and that that may have had something to do with it. They were drinking the Kool-Aid. We're going to be awesome forever, and then 2008 there's a crash, and nobody bought what they said they were going to buy. They promised stuff, like you said, to the guys like Liquor Depot, even though it was really built on the backs of boutiques like Kensington. I had a great relationship with Willow Park at the time as well. And the upper guys literally went behind my back and cut that deal with Liquor Depot. And then I ended up being a buyer of whiskey at a retail store, and they came crawling to me to buy some because they had so much left. And I took some for pennies on the dollar.
Same thing. I mean, like Willow Park, we've been big proponents from the start, and that one big deal went above everybody to the big chain. And I remember when it went south, when someone there shared me the spreadsheet of what they were looking to move. And I was like, you have got to be kidding. Like, it was an enormous quantity. Like I was dumbfounded by how many bottles they were left holding the bag on. So, and this was at a time when Bruichladdich needed the money. So I don't know what their terms were, if they were needing payment up front, but suffice to say, I'm sure it was not good times.
Yeah. Well, let's head into the Bunnahabhain.
Yeah. Fortunately, I don't think we've got quite the same garden path to go down on the Bunnahabhain, but I don't know. Kurt's a fan, so we might.
Yeah. 5 years from now, after the distill purchased by Heineken and then the divestment of Bunnahabhain, maybe we'll see.
So 46.9%, 31 years old. Do we know anything more about this whiskey? We do not. Cast type not specified, vintage not specified, but that's okay. You know, it's okay. The important thing is how it tastes, and we've got another presumably refill cask here. You know, refill sherry, refill bourbon. We don't know as yet, but gents, what do we think? What are the thoughts on this? I'm getting
Well,
like
while we're-
fruit spray, like, you know,
While we're, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, if someone made like fruit essences of perfume, it's like
Mhm.
misted fruit spray right now.
Yeah, there's more dunnage happening and maybe just a touch of peat.
Yes, there is.
Hmm.
There is.
Just a hint.
Yeah, you get it more on the palate than you do on the nose, but it's got that like,
Mhm.
kind of slightly earthy clay sort of note, almost minerally.
Hmm. So possibly a refill sherry butt, maybe
I
perhaps?
think we can play a little detective though here and look at the bottle outturns. I'm looking at the picture of the label and we're looking at 280 bottles.
Okay, so
So,
probably
you know,
a-
at 32 years
Oh,
old, I'm guessing it's sherry.
Yeah, this might potentially puts it into that 1989 territory, which I've seems to be a pretty good vintage for Bunnahabhain based on independent bottlings we've seen over the last 5 to 8 years.
Those sort of dried up on us. We had some absolutely killer ones, actually.
Yep.
Really
there
good
were.
ones.
46.2%
remember,
alcohol too. That's a good indication.
I remember a first edition 89 Bunnahabhain from this would have been like 2016, 2017. That was just fantastic and still high alcohol too. I'm looking at on Ardnaho's website on the 2022 collection of Kinship, which is the next one after this, just for kicks. The Bruichladdich is actually older in that one. It's a 31-year-old, and the Bunnahabhain that they bottled for that one is a 32-year-old.
I don't know that I would have guessed that's Bunnahabhain if I tasted that blind.
No way. Not, and
No.
especially with that little bit of peatiness in there, I would be guessing all over the map, but I don't think I'd ever guess Bunnahabhain.
Yeah. I'm not sure what I mean, it's very lush, very doughy, quite soft. I get bounced dryer sheets too, but like after they've been used, not fresh.
Yeah,
So,
it's
like,
that
after you've
ozone.
done a load of
Yeah.
towels.
I'm getting a touch of menthol just on the finish of it too. There's just a little bit of a pyrazine kind of spearmint.
So I think this, and it's been a long time since I've had it, but there was an official Bunnahabhain 40 that came out probably 9 years ago, 10 years ago now.
I helped drink some of that at Andrew's house. It was awesome.
This one?
And this, yeah, so that it could be me misremembering, but I seem to recall the profile of that is kind of similar to this one.
Well, there's only one way to find out.
Yeah.
If we're being
This
fair.
isn't really fair because it's your word against mine now.
And didn't your mom teach you if you don't have enough for everybody?
That's right.
I think blindly, I would probably maybe guess Ardmore. It's
Yeah.
kind of got some of the hallmarks of old Ardmore.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
Well,
going into
even-
that pancake breakfast and all that barley driven style.
And some tea and some
Yep.
like suede or
funk.
something.
Mhm.
There's you know, I
Yeah.
think that the Bunna 40 bottling is a bit sherried, so
Mhm.
whereas this is all refill.
I don't believe you. I challenge you to prove it tomorrow morning.
This is your proof, Bunna 40. No, but you know what it reminds me of is some of those elixir distillers, like 30 something or 40 something refill
Oh.
sherry bottlings that they did. What was the 43 and the 44?
Yeah.
What about the Portiskeag 45? You think that's
Well,
going
no,
into that
that's-
territory?
That's again sherried, so you're going back towards like Christmas cake, tropical fruits. I think you're getting some of those subtly tropical tones in this, but it's really faintly oaked. And I don't mean that as a criticism. I mean, I know Evan and Kurt for sure appreciate it when I say this. Like, I find this to be a very interesting style of whiskey,
Mhm.
also a very drinkable style of whiskey. it's perhaps not a marketable style of whiskey because most people want color and they want impact, but yeah, I quite like it.
So Dave Smith did some sleuthing and says Whiskey Exchange says this is an 89.
Oh, well, they probably would know. So we'll trust them on that. It's pretty, but again, like the Bruichladdich, I mean, the Bruichladdich was more Bruichladdich-esque than I think this is Bunnahabhain. So, I mean, this is even more just kind of innocuous refill cask matured single malt. But it's tasty. It's fun.
I think that kind of speaks to their process too, that they're not necessarily gunning to find the textbook answer. This is a selection, and they put their names right on it. Like the brothers, Scott and Andrew and Stuart all lay claim to this is my pick. And so they're picking good whiskey. We've got this parameter. We want to celebrate the our island neighbors. And that's that's the only kind of guiding light there. Old, expensive, and tasty. That's the move, which I think is pretty cool.
It's if you have any left, it's cool to go back and nose the Bruichladdich after nosing the Bunnahabhain. It's a lot more sort of fruity and floral.
And Lee, correct me if I'm wrong, but like if people buy a set of these, do you still have plinths? Is that a thing or?
So I have on the way, and I actually stole a page from your book. They've got, and this rolls off the tongue, they've got a high quality cardboard display box that you can get that I've got. You said this to me one time when I gave you the price of a whiskey. I told them that I could get it. They were going to ship it to me, and unfortunately, the shipping 6 of these boxes was going to be in a large box. And DHL had given them a quote of 975 pounds to ship a box of empty 6-pack boxes to me. And I did exactly what Andrew did to me one time. I said, just so you know, I could buy a plane ticket, come and see you, drive around for a bit, check that box's oversized luggage, and come back with 20 more pounds in my pocket. And suddenly, hey, after spending thousands and thousands of dollars on their whiskey, they decided to ship those boxes for free. So those should be here any day now. But I also have these jute, that's a fancy word for burlap, jute bags that also come with them. So I've got a
So if anyone's interested in the Kinship Collection, we can get you a fancy cardboard box or burlap sacks, your choice. And Lee, I appreciate you bringing up that example because that does sound verbatim like something I would say.
And it was just like, as the guy selling this stuff too, I was like, fair enough, that's expensive. And then I believe we actually were able to negotiate a better price on that. So that worked out.
Win-win.
Yeah.
All right, gents, are we satisfied with our talk on the Buna? Should we move on to the Bowmore?
Sure.
Now I have to say, I know Evan oohed a little bit when we were like figuring out the lineup here, but like this has got all kinds of Andrew written all over it.
No, I did not foo-foo this. I was really excited when I nosed this. It's going into that tropical fruit territory in a really nice manner.
Tropical fruit, Parma violets.
Yep.
Brandy, like a big Armagnac, like Armagnac and a big brandy snifter, like really nice old Armagnac. Dark chocolate
for sure.
A little bit of cigar smoke wafting in the corner.
I was gonna say cigar tobacco, like a nice like Cuban cigar. Not the kind they sell you on the beaches in Mexico.
And it's got that ammonia or iodine sort of note to it as well.
A little brimstone.
A little bit of
undried tobacco too, like wet leaf in there.
a little bit of crazy glue on the nose to me.
Oh, that's a good call.
Crazy
Yeah,
glue.
like a touch of crazy glue or epoxy.
Yeah.
Marty, get with the future. You got to move on to Gorilla Glue. It's all the rage now.
Yeah, it's unscented though. It's just not the same.
I remember when glue was made from horses.
Wow. The floral style of Bowmore is generally not my thing. And I don't find this over the top floral, but it's way heavier than I would typically be into. But this is stunning. The balance on this whiskey is absolutely stunning.
You know those, what do they call it? That tree bark that people make at Christmas, but like sprinkled with peppermint?
Oh,
Yeah, I could see where you're going with that.
You're really juicy on the palate this comes.
It actually kind of arrives like a Laphroaig. It's got that sort of green, prickly sort of thing.
little pine resin.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. There's definitely Laphroaigs that do give a bit of that Parma violet note as well. Typically not to this extent though.
Very grapey and very lush on the palate.
Yeah.
So the just for those that are curious, this is a 33-year-old. The Kinship Collection for 2022. It is also a 33-year-old. There's just a touch of salt and vinegar, potato chips coming off the nose now.
I get that. And I get like almost like cherry cordials or something. Actually, no more than that. It's remember those Brookside chocolates with like acai berry and blueberry and stuff? It's got that chocolate and berry sort of thing going on there.
Yeah, it's like a gorging on chocolate, but also getting antioxidants at the same time.
Do not make chocolate healthy. Don't ruin chocolate for me.
They did try to sell that like it was healthy, and I was like, you know what, it might be a little bit healthy when you eat the prescribed amount of 4 chocolates, but
That's right.
I had 4 acai berries. I'm gonna be great.
Yeah, the at some point the oxidants overtip the antioxidants in the in that. So
I love those portion like recommendations when you look at a bag of potato chips or something, you just turn it around and you laugh and turn it back over. It's like 11. Who eats 11 chips? Come on.
yeah. So why did you give me a 1 kilogram bag then?
That's right.
Apparently that is absolutely unregulated. What they say is the portion size. And it's completely up to the
makes sense.
producer.
But the producer says to the marketer, keep it to 60 calories. And then that's what it ends up being. Yeah.
There's some hints of the that cognac finished parcel well here. It's got
I was
malt sort of note.
it's almost like Isla Violet's 33 meets Pete's Beast 34.
It is for sure. It has that hallmark. Yeah, crazy.
That's a pretty wicked dram.
Are there details? Does it say anything about whether or not there may have been any other cask influence there?
No, so at least from what I can see on Ardnahoe's own website, maybe Dave Smith, if you can see something on if Whiskey Exchange has something, but Ardnahoe's own website just gives their essentially own marketing tasting note.
Yeah,
So
I get that from them direct, where they have their tasting notes on it, and this is the pick. Shut up.
Yeah.
And that's good.
Are you questioning
here's
us?
What you got.
Are you
Leave,
questioning us?
go ahead and sell it. And it's like, okay.
I think Jeff's getting some empirical evidence for us there. He held that bottle up for a sec. I thought he was just going to neck that bad boy. I was like, that's not cheap whiskey to be, tossing back there, buddy. Well done. If you can neck a bottle of, several $100 type whiskey.
So Dave Smith does say that the Whiskey Exchange does call it a 1987, which is good to know.
Really juicy. That's a cool whiskey.
It is. It's that is full on Bowmore though. Like there's even though it's got a bit of that Laphroaig fashion to it as well. That's pretty much unmistakable for me.
It definitely 100% noses like a Bowmore. It's just on the arrival. There's a little bit of Laphroaiginess, and then it's all Bowmore from there on in. Laphroaiginess.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It might be a little
going
bit
back
up
to the
Scottish
Bunnahabhain
dictionary.
That's right. It's Gaelic. What he's saying. Going back to the Bunnahabhain, it's a lot more sort of doughy and yeasty after the Bowmore.
Holding its alcohol really well too. I haven't,
Oh,
I haven't
wow.
felt the need to add any water. I usually do so just experimentally, just to have a drop and see how she opens up, but I haven't wanted to. This has got
Mhm.
such a beautiful richness.
The laddie is full on like going into Chicago mix territory, like the caramel and cheddar popcorn, but also
Yes.
salted pretzels, like full on, just like fresh out of the oven, big salted pretzels.
Good notes, buddy.
Sorry, weird happenings. My door sensors are going off and the doors are all locked and there's no one here, so. And it was triggering the dog.
Sorry, I couldn't see the kid.
So
Have you ever seen The Strangers or The Purge, Andrew?
Have I mentioned that I have firearms? Maybe I do, maybe I don't, but you'll never know until, well, that's not a dare.
Yeah.
But anyway,
The Winchester collection doesn't count.
you mean the Ardbeg double barrel box that did
That's
not
right.
come with the gun, but it came with 6 silver cups and a pen.
Which you can melt down if it was a vampire type thing.
I could.
Yeah.
You're doing okay.
Melted down into to werewolf killing bullets. So I missed much of the chatter about the Bowmore, which is a shame because I love this style of Bowmore with limits. I don't write a blank check on that, but yeah, I love this whiskey. I think it's fresh. It's got nice layers to it. It reminds me of a more evolved and more elegant version of that 21-year or 22-year Aston Martin collection, whichever one it was, that I wanted to dislike because of the blatant marketing crossover, but was actually quite a good whiskey.
Now I'm getting fresh car leather. I don't know why.
Corinthian, Evan, from
Yeah.
Corinth, Michigan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Corinthian
Let's hit up the Caol Ila 40.
All right. The
So oldest one in the
boy
collection.
range.
For the next edition, the 2022 edition, the Caol Ila gets younger. It's a 32-year-old in that one.
Ooh. So Lee, I guess that means the price is coming down, right?
The price is actually less by about 300 pounds on the Ardnaho website for the 2022 versus the 2021 collection.
I think Lee just got strong-armed into dropping his price by that same margin.
Well, I've only got one box
Sorry,
left.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair.
Yeah. Lee, if the price drops, we can definitely do without the cardboard.
Yeah.
You're very
Even
kind,
though it
Evan.
didn't cost
Very
you a
kind.
dime.
You know what's interesting? This Caol Ila, Andrew, you're probably in the same boat as I am with this. A ton of old Caol Ilas, a ton of old Port Ellens and stuff. They tend to just sort of converge at a certain age, usually just over 30-ish or so. This is not, to me, mistakable as a Port Ellen. This does not have the profile of a Port Ellen at all. I would never blindly guess Port Ellen. I'm kind of shocked at how different this is for a 40-year-old Caol Ila from what I would have expected.
It is so soft and
So soft.
and where's the peat?
Yeah. No, the nose it's like you took some pineapple slices and you rubbed Vicks Vapor Rub on them.
Evan, that's a good one. I like that. Please include that in a future tasting note somewhere.
Sounds good. The next time we have a SMWS 40-year-old Caol Ila, it's there.
He says as he wipes tears from his eyes from the pain.
That's right.
There's some cool.
I
Go
can't
ahead.
believe like there's almost no smoke here. I mean, there's a little bit on the palate. There's a little bit of soft, subtle peat. This does
Yeah,
not
yeah.
come across this does not come across like Caol Ila. And it's not maritime either. There's like no mussels, scallops, there's no bacon.
Yeah, this only has slightly more peat on the nose for me than the Bunnahabhain, and just barely.
And the Bunnahabhain's peat's probably coming from the water. Like,
Yeah.
do they peat that at all? You would know.
I don't think they did at that time.
Bunnahabhain has done, I think prior to 89, they did a bunch of peating. David Brody had spoken to this. Some of you guys probably know David Brody on like social media and stuff. He had spoken to a few different periods where Bunnahabhain had peated for the years. So it's very possible. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
It's a really good palate. Like it's still full on into those pineapple notes, but there's a bit of that like going into not fisherman's friends for me, but Hall's territory on the menthol hulls, and just a touch of potting soil in there as well.
I adore this whiskey. Wow. The subtlety there and the way it's all like integrated is crazy cool.
Yeah. The only thing that really screams Caol Ila to me is the saltiness.
And the name on the bottle.
Yeah. Oh, I guess I should have looked at that.
It's in all caps.
I'm gonna throw
Yeah.
something out there. Like, I think if I had been given this blind and didn't know what it was, I might have actually guessed Ardbeg on it for some strange reason. And I can't put my finger on why.
Man, that's pretty.
That's a stunning whiskey. And yeah, the smoke is all but gone. It's sort of whiffed it away, but we have that expectation at 40 years old. But I do like it just on the very, very, very tail of the palate. It's really, really nice.
All right, Evan, are we on to the Ardbeg? Are we on to the, well, almost the youngin? It's the youngin of the Kinship Collection.
The unofficial Trayvon. Oh, you can tell it's an Ardbeg because Kurt's getting serious now.
No, I moved the Caol Ila over to one of these. I want to see how
Oh,
it is.
cool.
It's super delicate, right? I kind of want to see if we can amp it up a little bit.
Well, I'm nosing the Ardbeg now, and it's got this really interesting kettle corn note, like kettle corn with just a touch of truffle oil in there. Like it goes a little bit mushroomy.
This is unmistakable Ardbeg to me, though.
Yeah.
I think I would blindly guess this in like 2 seconds.
The nose reminds me of the first edition Trayvon that I've tried. Can't recall the other two.
It's
It even
better though.
has
It actually,
this- yeah.
it's got some of the nuance and notes of the 18-year-old Airy Nambesh, and it's got a little
nice.
bit of
Yeah,
a
Kurt,
little
I
bit-
was about to blurt out. This reminds me of Aryan Nambashed.
It does.
That's a cool note. A little bit of like a smoky Ovaltine on the nose right now.
I love it.
I don't know that I could ever tell anyone I knew what Ovaltine was like. Is that like basically Tums?
It's like a chalky chocolate nastiness. Fake chocolate, weird.
Yeah,
stuff.
it's chalky. It's like slightly vanilla driven hot chocolate essentially.
You know what the closest you'll get to it is? If you think of how crappy those like chocolate flavored protein powders and stuff are. It's kind of close to that stuff.
Oh, you mean like when you're trying to beefcake?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you go to the gym and you got your powders and your water and you try to mix them together, but it never really works out. well.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Chew in the chunks of it.
Except you're trying to replace your reps with REM, is what it comes down to with Ovaltine.
Once again, like really soft delivery on the palate.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for me, the palate is very Ardbeg, very identifiable. Not so much the nose to me, but the palate is.
This is moving away from the salt and vinegar chips of the was it the Bowmore that I said that? And into like all dressed chips territory on the palate.
Hmm.
Wow, cool.
Even like a slight aftertaste of Thousand Island for me right now.
Jeff says he's surprised at how much the peat has calmed down. I was thinking the same thing, but is it actually that calm? Because the aftertaste is pretty damn smoky. I'm thinking we're just getting a little bit blind to the peat, kind of. I think it's a little more robust than I expected it to be.
Yeah, the peat is there on the nose. It's kind of into that sort of citric territory that Ardbeg sometimes gets into, where it's zingy at the same time.
The smoke is definitely bigger on the palate, like way bigger on the palate. It's a really clean smoke too. It doesn't feel like a dirty kind of whiskey. And what I love about this is like, you can tell this is old school Ardbeg because you know I'm an unapologetic fanboy, but there are a ton of the new ones that I sort of struggle with and have to look beyond a certain note. And it's not those ones you typically expect. A lot of the really, really young peated whiskeys now end up with these really, really heavy, rubbery and licoricey tones. Like it's almost one-dimensional a lot of times. This is not that at all. This is fruity. It's clean smoke. Doesn't have like you're licking a burnt rubber boot or anything like that.
It's pretty obvious what's happening there. It's young Ardbeg is so desperate to be Laphroaig.
It's the Ardbeg that identifies as a Laphroaig.
Yeah.
Wow.
No one wants to be Laphroaig.
Oh, good.
Oh, and this guy's comment, brilliant. One-dimensional like bourbon.
Sky, that hurts, buddy.
I feel like I've missed some humorous goings on.
Yeah, I almost had Kurt getting Ardbeg up his nose. You missed that.
Would not be the first time, I promise you. Certainly won't be the last.
Yeah, first time it wasn't laced with cocaine though. So
Yeah. Whoa. That took a slightly darker turn than expected.
Wow. Such length
Will
on
be
that though, eh?
edited.
So Phil's asking, why do we always regress to Laphroaig bashing? And I think we can all agree that because it's
Yeah.
warranted.
So
So
no, it's out of jealousy is what it is.
Are we regressing though, or are we just pointing out the obvious?
accepting facts. So
Jeff just says it's so easy. Fish in a barrel, right, buddy?
Yeah.
well, lovely Ardbeg.
Very cool.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That is by far
I gotta say, that's my favorite so far.
oh,
That's-
he's back. Can't see
Yeah.
him, but he's back.
I am here.
I gotta put a pin in that. So are you like under some euphemism or pseudonym now? Where are you?
Oh,
I
he's
see.
Lee Hansen.
He's Lee Hansen.
That's what my mom calls me.
Handsome Lee Hansen is back. All right. Are we ready to move on to Laphroaig?
Although
I'm just doing a sort of a retrospective now. So I've gone back to the Caol Ila after the Ardbeg. It's fun to revisit these after the next one. And the
We are sort of
We're gonna go
over
back
at
through them
Lee's
all.
part
Right?
here.
We're gonna go
Yeah.
back and do our
Yeah.
slow
Okay.
meandering wander. The
The
Caol
Caol
Ila,
Ila is into Ben Rinnes territory right now on the nose after the Ardbeg.
to me, it's more like 1970s art on the nose now.
Mhm.
Maybe
Andrew,
not
if you've
quite
got
as
one of those
crazy.
really-
Sorry, Kurt?
if you've got one of those blenders glasses, put your Caol Ila in it.
Put the Caol Ila in it? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, really, really blows it up.
Do I have a blender's glass?
Do I? So Lee, for all of our sake here, where's Bert tonight?
Oh, fantastic. I can't hear you. I got a banana in my ear.
Took me a second to figure out where you're
colorful.
going there. Yeah. Cutting, Kurt. That cut deep. I can tell.
Hey, I like it.
At least I got to be the good looking fun one.
That's right. But the joke's on all of us except for Marty. Lee can out bench press us easily. Except for Marty.
Fantastic.
All right. Shall we on to the Laphroaig, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Yep.
I love that there was an except for Marty there. This kind of feels like Marty could be our Chuck Norris for the jokes going forward.
Yeah.
Like behind
Marty's,
Marty's chin is another fist. Like
Yeah,
that kind
yeah.
of stuff?
Yeah. Either that or Marty is just the Teflon of
Yeah.
Kensington Wine Market. No insult stick.
He's
They just-
lasted longer than most.
Yeah.
All right.
So the
And just to be clear,
Laphroaig
we're doing
is,
the kinship, right?
We're doing
Yeah.
the kinship first, yeah. Oh, someone's getting a text message, it sounds like.
Yeah.
23-year-old, 2021 balling, 50.5%, 261 bottles. So that does beg the question, how big was this cask? Perhaps this was as big as a refill, but based on the color, I'd highly doubt this was first fill, but what do we think?
How many bottles, sorry, Andrew?
261.
Oh,
so
better than
just
20.
for a bit of background, comparing this to the 2022 collection, I just found something interesting. The Laphroaig goes up in age. It is a 31-year-old for the 2022, and there is no Ardbeg in the 2022 collection. It is replaced with Jura, which is probably what warranted the price drop.
Sure.
Yeah, Lee, that
That's
means a
insulting.
50% price drop, right? Because there's Jura in it.
Half, and I actually carry you to your car too.
Can I buy a set and just leave the Jura behind?
Hey,
You
you
have to
said
pay
it to
more
me.
for
I've
that,
come
buddy.
in. I've
I
come
mean-
in with an independent. You're like, oh, the good Jura.
Yeah, you did have a really good Jura.
It's what happens. Like something magical happens. We take that barrel away and don't let them do whatever it is they do.
Well,
We
older-
get the good Jura. That's
Older
No.
Jura does kind of veer into older Bruichladdich territory for me, where it does. They both have this kind of funky side that tends to be a lot of fun.
But
Jura
I do
is-
think that those kind of like good Juras and stuff are much like Andrew and I have talked about with good grain whiskeys. It's a happy accident. Like, I don't think there's a plan to make Jura good. It just okay.
Well, Kurt,
Yeah.
I actually think they had a strategy with it for a while. They peated it to mask the spirit. So, I mean, that's effectively what happened there. I mean, in Jura's defense, it has very large, tall stills. Like it's hard to make, and they're wide. They're not like Glenmorangie's like lantern like stills. They're big onion pot stills. Kurt, you're being spied on, by the way. I feel like I'm watching an episode of The Office, watching you. Like you're in the interview room where people are asking, you're like giving your candid take on things.
That's right.
While like your coworkers are walking
the
behind
booth.
you.
Yeah.
That didn't look anything like Dwight Schrute.
Kurt, don't touch the door.
I wonder if just that there's been some, some hiccups in the barrel supplies with Jura. I mean, knowing what we know about how the character of the wood, every time that we have one of ours that comes through and it tastes great, and we've picked one barrel and it's exceptional, it says it's from this forest that had this in it, whereas they're just such churned out old Jura is a hodgepodge of everything and then bottled down. So it's not fair to compare the independents to the mass produced stuff. But if they don't have a decent, consistent wood source, we're not going to get good whiskey out of them.
I don't think they have a really good spirit cut. I think Andrew's right. I think the size of the stills and how they run the stills is a part of it. But I think the biggest obstacle is exactly what you said there. Richard Patterson, that proclivity for everything he does with the wood policies there, he will destroy any spirit.
Yeah, I agree. I think the biggest obstacle is a big suit and tie. But I think what happens with the independent bottlings is White and McKay every once in a while gets a shiny new watch, goes to Richard and says fetch and just throws it, and then they ship out some Jura from the back door to independent bottlers and brokers.
I'm the first person to make jokes at Richard's expense because he's become a caricature of himself.
Yeah.
But I will say this about the man. He puts on, if you've never seen it before, the single best performance of any brand ambassador, hands down. The problem is, if you've seen it once, you've seen it. But he's a master showman, and there's no reason that's why he's where he's at. But yeah, the watches and the ties and the fancy suits and the throwing whiskey and calling people pussies kind of gets old after a little bit of time. But I think Jura, like, let's be honest, it's never been a priority.
Nope.
Bowmore is more of a brand than it is like a well-made
distillery.
whiskey in its own right.
Yep.
I hate to say it. I mean, I've got some old examples of Dalmore that are beautiful, but I think you know, it's kind of one of those things like time cures all ills scenarios. I just don't think that they've ever been very well made whiskeys is what it boils down to. And you know,
Getting
the
offered
fact that-
independence from
Well, if you put 'em
Bowmore
in
is tough. You
if you
can't
put
bring
them in
them
a
in.
refill cask and leave them for a while, the edges get rounded out. You add in some like oxidative notes, and it gets kind of fun. But is it, you know, a showstopper a lot of times? I don't know.
I
Anyway,
can bring in Bowmores that are amazing, and I can't sell them because the
Yep.
people that actually like Dalmore think it's weird, and everybody else that knows Dalmore won't buy it no matter how good it is.
Yep.
well, it's because they want their E150, and if they don't get enough E150, then
They
they're
get
not.
angry.
All right, we've barely talked about this before. You know what? I think we should do like a drunk history cast after we do one of these tastings sometime.
Yeah, totally.
Just to see where things go. Give us
A
a
drunk
topic
Scotch
none of us
history,
know
yeah.
anything about, and
Yeah.
we'll just riff on it. So,
I love it.
Argentine banking history, go.
Yeah.
This
Or
Laphroaig
gin,
is
go.
this Laphroaig is great. I mean, I like it. I don't know. I don't know what to say more about it. I've been so focused on taking
It's pretty soft. Like even in comparison to their official 25s, which over the last few years have been very sort of soft and tropical. This is even softer than that. It goes a little bit more into creamy ashiness territory on the palate for me versus the official 25s, but it's kind of like a mix of the tropical fruit driven Laphroaig and the farmy funky Laphroaig, and usually you get one or the other, not both.
And with a deep inhalation, when you get past the fruit, just past the spices and stuff, there's a little bit of a fishy note in there too. I like that Stefan said it's like a mature cartridge. I kind of get, I was thinking Laphroaig 10 cask strength, but like obviously a lot more mellow and stuff. And you're right, it's got that slight funkiness. It's almost like a soft white cheese, like a brie or a camembert or something. And it's just softening it a little bit.
I love how Phil and Suzanne think we're done bashing Dalmore and Jura. I saw, I think it was Stefan's quote or someone, maybe Jeff's, about the E150, and I don't know if anyone's ever heard I may, much like I have been on the record quoted as saying that bourbon is the simple man. I should qualify it man or woman's whiskey. Now.
Yeah, don't discriminate.
Dalmore I like to refer to as Dalmore. Like it almost never tastes anything near where it looks color-wise. I mean, except if you're going back to the pre-Constellation collection with the diamonds, like the 40, the 45, the Astrum, the Aurora, like those were incredible bottlings. They were just great old whiskeys. And then the next year they put diamonds in the bottle and raised the price by 10 times, and the whiskey quality didn't improve. If anything, it got worse. So anyway, I'm not jaded. I actually don't want to sell those things because I don't find they're interesting, but Kurt will attest to this. Like there's a lot of times where he's like, come on, man, we got to bring in some Dalmore 15 because people want it, and they do, whether they should or not.
In Kurt's defense on there, the 15 is probably the best in the official lineup.
Oh, don't come to my defense, though. I don't need a knight in shining armor.
I don't want you in my
It'll
corner.
sell. There's no defending me. I don't think this is good stuff. And ironically, we have the same thing. Harmony and I had a discussion with Glenfiddich. We didn't have any Glenfiddich aside from one, like a 30-year-old in the glass case. Glenfiddich 15 is really good. It is.
And Kurt, in our defense, that was not because we didn't want it. It's because they've literally supplied no product to the market for like a year. So,
and what do they have in the range that's actually interesting? Like, I don't mean to sound like a whiskey snob, but I'm sure people in this appreciate it. Yeah, kind of a little bit. But none of us are buying, 12-year-old 40% whiskeys. We're just not. It's not that they're bad; they're incredibly well made. They're just not what we're hunting for. So unless there's something on the market that Glenfiddich is going to release that appeals to people like us, there's no point in stocking it just to say we have Glenfiddich on the shelf. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
You can't
I
be
mean,
passionate about it. We got such thick tongues after decades of cask strength and single cask stuff that it just doesn't make a dent.
oh,
If you nose a Glenfiddich 12 or go back and revisit it, I dare you to find a flaw. It's beautiful, soft,
no,
pretty elegant whiskey. It's just boring.
I'll back Kurt up on this 100%. I think the coming to Jesus moment for me was about 7 years ago. I took my, not 7, 5 years ago, I took my parents to Scotland with me because it was my dad's 75th. And Beth Havers, great gal, set us up with like the works tour at Glenfiddich. We had a dinner whiskey tasting or a lunch whiskey tasting thing. And I remember like not being excited about it in the least because we'd been, like my dad and I had spent the day before with Richard Urquhart and somebody else at Gordon MacPhail trying the 75-year-old because my dad was 75 and a bunch of other baller shit. And so we're at Glenfiddich and I'm like, I kind of felt like I was just going through the paces because I agreed to go there and she offered to put us up for the night, like great offer. And the Glenfiddich people, their hospitality is first rate. They're awesome people. Balvenie, same thing. And we're going through the nosing and tasting and I couldn't taste the whiskeys because I was driving. Like, you know, I couldn't drink them, but I was blown away. Like I was blown away by how good the 12 is. And we don't stock it. And we probably will never stock the 12-year-old. But for what it is,
Yeah.
it's excellent. And I mean, I think the comparison there would be to something like Glenlivet 12.
Yeah.
Like it is a way better product because there's a different ethos there. It's not a big multinational company that owns it. It's a family business and it's a family business that still cares about what they're doing. They just happen to be very big and very successful. And I will not at all ever slag Glenfiddich for that. I mean, they've earned the right to be as big and successful as they are. Their products, I think, are all of them are well made. Are they what Kurt and I would go home and drink on a Sunday night when we need a pick-me-up? No. But are they very well made and should consumers be happy with what they get? 100%.
Monday morning after too many Sunday night pick-me-ups, perhaps, you never know. Sky is right.
Gotta level up.
Glenfiddich 15 Distillery Edition was at 51%.
Oh,
That
yeah.
was a
that
really,
was good.
really nice
Yeah.
whiskey.
I mean, that is our biggest probably knock. I mean, Kurt, Evan, I'm sure you're the same way. Like that's probably my biggest knock on them is they're 40 or 43%. I'd love to see them at 46. And I would love to see like Glenfiddich's big enough. Why can't they do a regular cask strength edition? They should have the stocks to be able to do something like that.
That would create a ton of buzz for a company like that too. Can you imagine how much they would literally get pages of press for something like
The
that?
industry leader, right? So
Yeah.
that would be huge. I agree.
Hmm.
Back to
Yeah.
this Laphroaig, man. It is opening up beautifully. It's got such an amazing mouthfeel. It came off a
It's-
little muted at first, but it is really fattened up.
And I gotta say, I love the farmy funk that's coming off it right now. Like it is full on into like you just walked into a dairy barn territory for me.
Ooh.
All right. Should we move on to the beast? The
Yeah,
other Laphroaig? Lee, you'll be happy to know there's a case of this arriving tomorrow in store. I don't know if it's your last one. But there's a case of this coming into the shop tomorrow.
I might know a guy that has one more.
All right. And
We so
again,
badly wanted to be mad at Lee for this one. We wanted to be mad at it and just
Yeah.
put it on the shelf, saw that sticker and went, "Argh." And then Lee came in and opened one and we went, oh shit.
God damn it, it's actually good.
Really good.
I mean, I'm sure Jeff or Dave or one of our other very fast folk can figure out how many dollars per year we're talking here. But it's certainly off the sweet
30.
spot that we generally look for. But the sherry on this, like before we even talk about the Laphroaig, let's talk about the sherry. The sherry on this is pretty spot on.
Flawless, clean sherry.
Not cloying, not globby. I think that I think it's a real sweet spot for sherry age as well. You push too far, it would just take over. I think we're just starting to get some of the sugar, but we've got the texture happening with it as well. It is a really sweet spot. And I will tell you that I see these lists of what I have to pay for the whiskeys. And it's like, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. What the hell is this?
Yep.
And every time,
Isla.
Does it ever occur in the back of your brain somewhere where you're like, oh man, Andrew's gonna give me such a hard time about this?
It does. And then I think about all the happy people we make with these whiskeys.
Yep.
When I present this to, I don't do this with Andrew, but there's occasionally where I'll sit down and I'll pour it, and I won't tell people the price. I'll just write it on a piece of paper and I will slide it across the desk just so it's in front of them. And then I hear, "You son of a bitch,
Mhm.
I'll take 2 cases." Every time.
I say
Yeah.
that without you even
The
sliding
first-
paper at me.
Kurt,
And then give them the sticker shock.
Kurt, that gave me an idea. How would you and Harmony feel about moving to a market price model where like people come in, you romance them on stuff, and all the price tags just say MP beside them, and then they're like, what's the market price today? And then you have to take a look at them, pull out your calculator, take another look at them, go back to your
Look at their
calculator.
shoes.
This is just the first step towards whiskey day trading, you know that, right?
Yeah, that's right. I think the fourth step in there is checking Waddingtons and Halls, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you right now, we'd not be very good at it because
No.
we let several agents leave from our recent whiskey festivals without paying for any of their bottles. So, and then they're like, "Hey, by the way, you forgot to charge me for all our bottles." And it's like,
Yes,
"Oh,
yes, we
yeah,
did. And we
so-
thank you for your honesty.
seriously."
And to everybody else that's watching, that doesn't mean you can claim you're an agent when you're purchasing bottles.
I'm just gonna put these on my table, but sir, there's no whiskey festival. Anyway, Kurt, you're the one who were like, I remember you came into my office and you're like, that Laphroaig is really good. Like really, really good.
And as we discussed earlier, this isn't really my style. I don't typically go for big sherry, although I do always want to find really good, interesting ones as those late night occasional treats, or when people come over and we want to show them something way different for it. So I don't typically look for big peat and sherry like this. And as Jeff says, it's almost always at a ridiculous premium if you are getting it nowadays. Case in point, we have another stunning one that Evan and I tried in the back. It's coming at some point. We won't mention it, but it might rhyme with Bunnahabhain. This one, to me, is outside my wheelhouse, but an absolute perfect example of what peat and sherry should be together. I hate, Andrew's dead on accurate. I went in his office and was like, I hate to say it, but this is really freaking good whiskey. Like, really good.
Yeah.
Marty,
The price is a little shocking, but I'm really liking the whiskey. So
Marty, let me ask you this question because I know the only reason I've ever tried the Laphroaig 40 was because you had one. What
that's
did
so
you
long
pay-
ago, though.
What did you pay for the Laphroaig 40 back in that day? If you don't
Well,
mind
but
my
that was
asking.
just a tasting at the distillery. So,
Ah,
and at that time, I could have bought a bottle for 400 pounds, and it's every year since I'm kick myself for not, because I thought it was too expensive at the time.
So who pushed back harder, you or Debbie?
On buying it,
Yeah,
well, we just didn't spend that much on whiskey back then. So
that's fair.
that was like 18 years ago now.
It is kind of like, I remember, I mean, obviously when I started, I had no money, I had child support, kids to pay,
Yep.
and making hourly wage. But I remember when I bought my first $600 bottle, and it definitely was not the last. I mean, and then you're like, well, 1,000's not that much. And then you're like, I could pay 2,000. And my only regret in all of this is that I didn't hit those thresholds back when Black Bowmore 40 was still around.
Yeah.
Because like, fuck me, like if I'd bought 3 of those, I could have sold 2 of them, drank one, and I don't know, went on a cruise for a month.
I don't have to pay my mortgage this month.
Yeah. Do you want to? We'll put you on the spot for a second, Andrew, and you don't have to answer this. Do you know what your threshold has been? Like, what's the most you've ever paid for a bottle?
To be to be honest, I don't think I've paid more than 2,500. And part of that is just like, you get to a point where, hey, I've got a lot of whiskey. So, but I mean, I think that that is probably the top end of what I've spent. And would I spend more than that? I don't think so. I mean, that said, if I could get a black Bowmore 40-year-old for under 10 grand, I would have to seriously consider it. It would be very different, and I would have to find a way to hide those funds in the transaction from my better half, because she literally won't.
Yeah, that's the kind of one I could never tell my wife, oh, it's super valuable or anything, because if I had that bottle, there's no way I'm ever parting with it. It's going to be drunk, so it's worth nothing. Literally worth nothing.
I mean, so quickly to answer Jeff's question, I have 0 bottles of 80-year-old. However, I do have 1 in inventory. So technically that is the businesses, which is 65% mine. So,
Yeah.
but
Don't mix business and pleasure, man.
don't
That's
do
very
it.
expensive.
Don't get high on your own supply.
That's
I mean,
right.
Kurt, Evan, and Marty, and I'm sure even Lee can all comment on this. Like, it takes a lot of willpower to not just blow all your money on stuff, because you get access to things at preferential rates. You know, you're into it, you care about something, so you, whether it's wine or whiskey, and you can get carried away. And I think for a lot of people in the industry, like, if you can't keep that under control, it becomes a problem, whether it's drinking or the spending more than you're making, and because it's there, and you know how good it is, you get chances to try it. But yeah, I mean, just to round out wherever we went off on this tangent on this for me, the greatest joy I get now is like when we do tastings like this and open cool stuff, and we have people that want to do that with us. Like, that to me makes it all worthwhile. That's my favorite part of all of this now.
Yeah, I totally agree with all that, except for if you replace willpower with 3 kids. I think it works the same way.
People have said that they couldn't, I couldn't have that around. I'd be too tempted to drink it, too tempted to drink it. But being in the industry, there's no shortage of things open for me to drink. I don't have to worry about my willpower to break it. I've got some pretty good, I got a bottle of that Laphroaig on my desk. Like I have that tier on the regular. So when you get into those high muckety muck bottles, you're coming over.
We have a bottle of that Laphroaig on here.
I don't have that worry about the willpower. It's staying in the closet. My insurance company knows about it. And when you start seeing what can happen on the secondary markets for these, you don't cash in your RRSPs, on a whim. So why would you liquidate this asset by drinking it? That's not the issue. It's the buying it and tying up your cash flow like that for years. That's the scary part. You can get into trouble with.
So what do you guys think of this Laphroaig versus the 23?
Actually, I'm gonna wait. I'll go last. You guys go first. Kurt.
This Laphroaig, I love it. I think I prefer the previous one just for stylistic reasons. But this one to me is the more singular one. And finding this style is next to impossible nowadays. Finding this style with a clean cask is hen's teeth. Needle in a haystack kind of stuff. So this is a really, really kind of rare whiskey. So I love it for those reasons. If you're pouring me hefty drams, I probably want a bigger dram than the one before it, but I want both.
Yeah, the 14 is in this lineup. It's the most flavor forward. Like, it's the most sort of punchy, modern dram, and it should be because it's the youngest. But it's got this crazy on the palate for me. It's like NyQuil meets a teriyaki beef jerky stick. Like, you just dipped it in the NyQuil. It's got this cool sort of astringent licorice cough syrupy note, but it is so good.
The difference between the 23 and the 14. The 14 has what I call obvious charm. You don't have to be a whiskey expert to go, oh, that this is something that people will like. You have to really hunt on that 23. And that's the same can be said for a lot of older whiskeys. If you want to really drill down, you need you know, a white piece of paper and silence so you can really focus on this. Whereas this, you don't have to focus. You find out like, oh, my glass is empty. The 14 is just so obvious and drinkable, whereas that 23, I'm with Kurt. I'm leaning more towards that side. I don't have the big sweet tooth. I like the more subtlety of the 23. But damn, if I couldn't drink this every day, a little bit at a time, because it's got those obvious charms. I don't have to think about this.
Yeah,
Marty.
Well, I do have a bit of a sweet tooth at times, but on this one, I would have to try to say that you have to pour me a big glass of each one, because it's going to take a lot of tasting and decision making on it.
Marty, are you talking like a stein, like a big stein full, like a big?
Well, I do have a nice good beer glass right here that would work really good, fresh from the Czech Republic.
So Marty, if you really want to put the time and effort in, and I will help you on this, I can sell you a collection of the Kinship and one of these Laphroaigs, and I can get you a decent discount on it too.
All right. I'm with Kurt Lee on this one. I think it's pretty cut and dry. I mean, I like that 14. I think it's great. I think it's very well done for what it is. But if I had the choice to drink one of these, I would definitely go with the 23. I mean, I like the fact that it's pulled back a little bit. I like the fact that it's a bit more rounded and a bit more elegant. And yeah, I think we got to go back through these one more time.
Yeah.
And see how they've changed. So we're back to the Bruichladdich. If you've still got your glasses, if you've still got a little left, we're back to the Bruichladdich.
That's opened up nicely.
It's like the Islay soap company is in my bathroom right now. Bright sunny morning.
I'm back at that B&B.
Yeah, we found their secret ingredient, and it's expensive.
Walter's still asleep. He's not trying to get into the hamper or take the toilet paper roll out of the bathroom.
The cheesy tone is more obvious to me now than before.
Oh. I maybe it's just that I actually am hunting for that note for reasons. I mean, I love pizza. I might as well throw that out there. People who know me know I love pizza. So I'm probably hunting for that lactic cheesy note at the best of times. But yeah.
It's gone from the buffalo mozzarella you were talking about into what's the name of it? Like
a little bit of Parmesan Reggiano, like freshly grated.
I'm actually thinking more Gruyere, where it's got that sort of funky farmy note and that sharpness to it.
Perhaps a touch of Comté.
Comté is a good call.
I like this. This reminds me a little bit of those boutique Bruichladdich that we have, the 28, the 29.
Yeah.
It seems to have a bit more of a weight to it, but yeah, I really love this one.
Beautiful naked old school style. Quite doughy on the palate now too.
Kurt, Jeff's got a question for you. Next time you go to Islay, will you bring soap back for him?
Absolutely. I was actually a little bit sad a couple trips ago learning that Elsa had sold it. There's somebody else now. You know Elsa Hayes from Bruichladdich.
Oh, that was her company? I had no idea. She's an absolute sweetheart.
She is. She started that company. It was all her. She created the whole thing. Everything was hers, and she sold it all like whole. So I think she was still doing a little bit of consulting for them, but now she's just absolutely buried full time at Bruichladdich with her hubby.
Not that she's ever seemed unhappy, but she doesn't seem unhappy. So
yeah, for sure.
Did she make a clean break from the soap company?
Oh, dude.
I'm a dad. I got 4 kids, man. Come on, this is easy.
No, that was actually better than a dad joke. There was no groans like that. It just took me a second. Well done. Well done.
A little time bomb.
Hey, back to Bunnahabhain.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of underwhelming at the moment.
It's a little bit. not in that lavender kind of way, but almost like a really, really clean white Dove type soap or something on the nose.
I was kind of thinking more into like a lemon balm territory.
Yeah, I could see that, like a bath
Right.
bomb.
But
I was thinking
agitating,
BALM balm, where it's a little bit waxy as well.
Yeah.
Agreed.
As
shake
long
it
as
up. It wakes up.
as long as you don't put that balm on before Jackie Charles gives you permission to do so. That reference probably went over most of your heads. It's totally fine. I don't care.
Some Seinfeld.
Yeah, it was just a reference. Who told you to put a bomb on? I didn't tell you to put a bomb on. Anyway, it's funny. Look it up. Yeah, I think the Bruichladdich held up better than the Buna, if I'm being honest here.
Agreed.
Now, this is the like dick dram, the Buna 40. How did it hold up? Oh my god, it's gorgeous.
Sorry, which one do you want, Andrew?
Um,
This is the Bowmore, right?
no, I'm on this one because remember I poured a side dram of this. So it's still showing really well. You'll all be very disappointed to know.
Yeah, that's Andrew's FU dram for the night.
It's unctuously fruity.
Yeah.
Just explosive.
We're so happy for your experience.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. That's kind.
I'm sitting here chasing everything with an IPA, and Andrew's chasing it with 40-year-old Bunnahabhain.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
Now,
Break it open, Kurt.
Schrodinger's whiskey. Is it full or is it empty?
It's both. We all know it's
Yeah.
both.
You could probably get a couple $100 for that on eBay.
So Stefan Andrews is asking a question, I assume, about smoking bath salts. Is that Stefan, is that what you were asking? Back to the Aston Martin, I mean the Bowmore 33 year.
Beauty.
Yeah. Very
Yeah,
well done.
I don't think it's actually changed much in the glass, but it's held up really nicely.
It does seem like
Oh.
that cognac parcel. It does have that like eucalyptus-y sort of thing going on with it.
Kurt, I was thinking the same thing, like, but not just that, like the wood texture in this.
Yeah.
Like maybe the difference between all those other independent bottlers and Hunter Laing is like, I don't know, Stuart Lang went and met with somebody in Japan, is like, you're gonna let us call this Bowmore, right? No, come on, you're gonna let us call this Bowmore, right? All right, fine.
My guess is it's more they bought it long enough ago that it wasn't an issue, but
Maybe.
but
But
it
Kurt,
still
I think
goes
this-
into, sorry, go ahead.
well, no, I was gonna say, I think you're bang on. Like this isn't sherried, it's not bourbon. This is it reminds me 100% of those cognac
Yeah.
finished 33, 34s that we saw from all those unnamed, undisclosed Islay distilleries.
I'd love to side by side them, but based on my memory, it seems to be more powerful than the Isle of Islets 33, but less potent than the Pete's Beast 34.
I'd have to try them side by side. I think Jeff just did. And he's saying I think he's saying that they're not that similar.
Mhm.
However, I can say that no matter what, this one is way better than those other ones. Way
Mhm.
better. I really dig this one. Not that I didn't like those ones, don't get me wrong, but this one is firing on all cylinders for me. The other ones are kind of, yeah,
It's
they're
almost
good.
got me tempted to break one of those sets up just so I can have the Bowmore 33. Almost. All right, Kurt, how's that 40-year-old in your fancy blender's glass faring?
Well, I was just about to say, if you're taking the Bowmore, I want the Caol Ila. It's beauty, man. I love this. In this glass, absolutely still vibrant. It's probably the most integrated of them all. Everything just seems to be perfectly harmonious. There's nothing where you're like, okay, this is a loud cask, or okay, this is really huge peat, or anything like that. It just seems to be really, really balanced.
It's far more ozone than peat on the nose for me right now. I just poured a little bit more in, but it's I think Andrew said they use dryer sheets thing on this one, and I totally agree.
There's something slightly medical about it.
Yeah.
Not until I scrub or anything. There's just something like, I'm trying to put my thumb on what it is, but something that reminds me of some sort of hospital supplies or something.
You know what it is, and I'm not a record collector or anything, but it's pulling vinyl out of
Cool.
like a fresh album. It's
Evan,
got some of that going.
That's not what, after what Kurt said, where I thought he was going. It would be more like someone pulling out a rubber glove. All right, Kurt, got the
Yeah.
dance.
Yeah, I heard
Going
you're
in.
allergic to latex. Here's the vinyl glove. Yeah.
When we last revisited my contract, you said that was over.
Yeah.
Nice. Children's Tylenol, jeez.
Lee, if you want a really deep dive into the world of mysteries, follow Stefan on, I guess that's his brother, that's Sky's brother, actually, to be honest. Follow him on Twitter. There's some interesting followers there. I believe they're called Bronies. They post some really interesting shit. So yeah, check it out. Stefan's a composer. So yeah. But the children's Tylenol thing, Sky, because I believe you do have children, I do hope you get some. I believe the government just bought a stockpile of it. So you get some of that.
Yeah. Speaking of stuff you could sell on eBay for lots of money.
Yeah, that Caol Ila 40 is great.
Do you
I-
ship?
Sky, that is brilliant.
We're on.
You know what,
we're
Sky?
on whiskey.
Sky,
So-
I'll go over, DM me, or preferably email me. Anyone who knows me knows I hate fucking DMs. Don't DM me
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Send me an email,
Sky-
Sky. I will go get you some children's Tylenol tomorrow.
That's right.
I believe
You can't
most
ship
pharmacies
directly,
limiting
but we
them
might
to
be able
one per
to
person.
connect you with somebody that can get it to you. Just let us know.
All right, Ardbeg 19. How's she looking?
Very pretty. It absolutely drinks like we talked about earlier, like the 19s that have come out
Yep.
over recent years, married to the older school 18-year-olds kind of thing.
Yeah,
That-
go ahead, Evan.
Sorry, the Ovaltine note there has switched into cappuccino on the nose for me right now, like a more milky, foamy cappuccino.
With chocolate shavings or without chocolate shavings?
Without.
That's the one thing that drove me crazy about when you ask for a cappuccino in the UK. You turn around and all of a sudden there's like cinnamon and chocolate dusted on top. You're like, what the fuck is this? I asked for a cappuccino. But that's what their idea of a cappuccino is there. So
Don't adulterate my coffee.
yeah. I just wanted like espresso with a tiny amount of milk, foamed up a bit. What part of that did you not get?
It's tough, man. These are the tough times.
Yeah.
You know what? We live hard lives, Lee. As you know.
That actually, I honestly remember when Andrew and I when I visited Scotland for the first time with Andrew, and one of his chief wisdoms to pass on to me was don't order a cappuccino, order a flat white. And it was very beneficial to the trip, I gotta say.
It made it go by a lot more smoothly.
That's right.
100%. Kurt, I think you're right. It's trending more towards the Ardbeg Trayvons now than it is the Arian.
Yeah.
It's still like it's lovely whiskey. It's probably it might even be the oiliest, the biggest in the entire lineup tonight. You know, the last Laphroaig has got some serious body to it, but it's not as viscous or as thick as this.
And this one's only 47.8. Hey, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I like that when they naturally dip down below 50. When you get into those 48, 46, I find that there's a real concentration of flavor there beyond. You're moving past the weightiness of the alcohol, and you get, pardon the pun, but it's really distilled down that the character, and that's where that oiliness comes through.
It's a
It's not
reduction.
overshadowed
Right?
by alcohol. Yeah, exactly.
It's just been a reduction. And I'm 100% with you. If it can naturally fall down to between 46 and 52 or so, that's my absolute sweet spot, where it's most
Agreed.
comfortable on the palate, where you're getting the most aroma out of it too, I would argue, and it's still texturally uber rich, right?
Yeah.
Great drama. That was a really cool whiskey.
You know, that whole conversation makes me think that maybe for the whiskey that drops below 40% in Scotland, they should ship it to Kentucky and bring it back up.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a great idea. They could have rejuvenated
Yeah.
this.
Yeah,
They could have taken it back above 35, maybe up to
just
40,
put it on the fifth or sixth floor of some rickhouse, and you'll be back to whiskey in no time. Can't be Scotch
Nice.
anymore, but
Back to Laphroaig. You know those cookies, those wafer cookies that like come in a big pack, and there's like they're wafers, but with like a thin layer of chocolate in the middle.
You're so
There's a
gross.
pink one, a brown one, a beige one.
Yeah,
Your grandma
but
gave
like,
them to you?
but just the beige ones with the chocolate.
Nice.
That's what I'm getting on the nose right now. That and macaroons, like fancy macaroons.
I can see all of that. Fortunately, it comes together better than any of that individually. I really like the sum.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh man, it's gonna be tough picking two favorites tonight, but I think I have that figured out.
That's a
I know we're
fantastic.
still one away, but like, and we can't say because we don't want to influence the vote. And I do have a
Yeah.
poll teed up, which we're gonna do twice because I didn't want to go through the process of writing out the order twice or typing out the order twice. But
we don't want to influence the vote. I was just going to tell everybody my favorite was the Tianinic.
Oh,
you know what? I don't remember the King's Barnes. How did the King's Barnes show today, by the way?
It's pretty cool stuff, actually. This is going to sound wild, but I think it was very similar to the Pete's Beast, but without smoke and peat.
is that
It's
that
got
new
this
Lowland from
youthfulness.
Weems?
Yeah. So it's
Sure.
like super fruity. It's very Lowland-esque stylistically. It's got this nice spice note to it. It's I think it's pretty well put together.
I've had a chance to try a couple of them. They're I'm glad that they're Lowland-esque. You know, what the hell is this? You know, you want a super curveball. And yeah, I think they're a good product. I think they're a little young for you know, for the whiskeys that I'm used to drinking.
Totally.
But yeah, good product.
Hey Lee,
Yeah,
that's a
I
great
definitely think
transition. Speaking of young, when can we expect Ardbeg?
Ardno, great question. So we're looking at 2024. I've had some new make. It's incredible, proper Islay stuff, great smoke to it. But thankfully, I mean, they're doing it right. They're waiting and getting a nice mature, well, as mature as a 5-year-old could be. But yeah, they're going to wait till 2024 to get a little bit more texture and richness out of that.
Okay.
So,
Lee, is it rude before we move on to the last whiskey to ask you about the artwork behind you?
no, not at all. So tell me what you see. Which animal do you see?
Horses, I think.
I see a prairie scene with buffalo. That's I'm gonna leave that. And
It goes back and forth. Half, it's like right down the middle. Half people see horses and half people see some sort of or cows. My wife sees cows, as you may hear her saying in the background. I see horses. This is local art.
yeah, I like it. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's we're happy with it, and it's been on many a Zoom tasting over the last couple of years.
Lee, would you say it pulls the room together?
It
like a
really pulls the
Not
room
like the
together.
carpet, yeah.
It's like the carpet, exactly.
All right.
I'm gonna go pee on Lee's painting.
Nice. The only reason I answered the question is because I abide.
So on to the last Laphroaig. I've got those chocolate truffles, you know, those like really condensed, like balls of like cocoa. Like not polished, but it's like rough cocoa powder around the edges.
Yeah,
This
it's weaponized cocoa.
It's just all chocolate to me right now.
I love that you mentioned those, man. Louise messaged me the other day. She was out shopping. She goes, "Do you need anything?" And I was like, "Ruffles." She's like, "Potato chips?" I was like, "Nope." I was like, they're these like chocolate fingers of uber compressed coconut type stuff. They're god awful.
Completely dry your mouth out instantly.
And she brought them home, and I was like, "Okay, these are actually really good and really awful at the same time." I really enjoyed the experience.
I think you could up the sales of milk if you unpack those.
Yeah.
We can't. We already have to unpack children's Tylenol apparently, so we can't do that.
Yeah. That's right after romaine lettuce, milk is the next shortage, guys.
That's right.
So Phil and Suzanne have a great idea for a bumper sticker, but really if Chelsea was still working for Kensington Wine Market, which she hasn't been for almost 8 months now or more, I can't remember exactly how long. Weaponized cocoa would make a great t-shirt. I'm gonna one up the bumper sticker. Like, I don't know, maybe it just says weaponized cocoa on the front and on the back it says Kensington Wine Market. No explanation needed.
8 months now. Holy crap. I've noticed your shoulders are just starting to drop a little bit.
I'm a little more relaxed.
Yeah.
Who would have thought someone brought in to be your assistant? In her defense, I was just never going to be anywhere near as organized as she needed to be.
Oh, she was awesome. But I saw by the end of it, like the two of you, like you'd walk into the office like doing this.
Oh, we were ready to kill each other. I mean, she's a great gal. She's incredibly talented, very smart.
For sure.
We learned the hard way that we're not built to work together, and that's cool.
No, it's Andrew's the owner because he can't be managed.
Don't tell
Marty,
me
I gotta get you to choke on something at some point. It's I gotta get the trifecta.
Evan, that's quite the competition. We're gonna have to
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
All right, I'm triggering the vote here. So you get a chance. We're gonna do this twice. Phil and Suzanne also think pineapple smeared with Vicks is another great t-shirt idea, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Perhaps, now bear with me here on this, and Evan, I don't know if it was you or Kurt who said, you know, we've been joking about making a smoking jacket, but we should really make it. What if we took that as days ago? Yeah, what if we do take that as a design idea to someone, be like, look, we want you to make us a smoking jacket, and as a visual, we want you to think of pineapple smeared in Vicks. Go.
Yeah.
Maybe they come up with something.
They probably take it as that's the fabric texture we want more than anything else.
Or maybe that's the inside and the outside is weaponized cocoa. Because you got to get that peacocking of two different layers to it. So
I feel like a boomer. How are you voting?
Oh, you can't vote it because you're
you don't get to vote because you're a co-host. So
okay. Yeah. Okay.
But
good.
But
you're in too deep, man.
We're gonna ask you anyway later, so it's all good. Pick your two favorites.
So the last whiskey in the poll, Andrew, is that like a pierogi version of Laphroaig?
Laphroaig.
Yeah, it's Ukrainian.
I probably should be wearing my glasses and I'm not, so
unpacking sour cream with that one.
Lee the vote hunter. Or hunting. Yeah, good times. All right, how is the poll looking, by the way? I'll share the results here. So most of you have voted. Wow, look at this. I'm actually stunned by this. I'm also a little bit pleased by it, if I'm being honest. Look at that. Jan Bowmore rocking the votes here, surging to a first place on the first round. That is interesting. We are going to kill that and start it all over. So I'm going to relaunch the poll here. So you get a chance to vote one more time. There we go, relaunch. So Bowmore took it on the first round. We'll see what takes it for number 2. Interesting in the early voting. Surprising, actually. 2 or 3 more of you get a chance to vote one more time. As always, if you're sharing a feed, unfortunately, you only get 1 vote. The second round is very neck and oh man, no way. I might leave this up for a moment. It seems you didn't vote. This is kind of amazing. I don't know if you guys can see this. Sharing it
Kurt,
now.
it's not too late to stop being host and stop the shutout there, buddy.
Bowmore is both the first favorite and the second favorite of tonight's tasting.
It's a pretty even spread, but I am shocked by the no votes for Ardbeg.
Yeah, Ardbeg did not get a lot of love. I actually quite like that Ardbeg, but I'm also surprised by the lack of love for Bruichladdich.
Me too.
Didn't show well either. All right, so I think we're going to do this in the order of people who spoke the least. So Marty, being the reserved fellow that you are, what were your 2 favorites in tonight's lineup?
A little bit torn on this, but I'm gonna go with the Bowmore first and then the 23-year-old Laphroaig.
Okay, I like it. Lee, you did chime in a lot, but slightly less than Evan. So
I like Laphroaig 23 and Bruichladdich.
Cool.
Well,
I was a big
there
fan
you
of that
go.
Bruichladdich. I thought that was a cracker whiskey.
Evan,
I definitely have to pick the Bowmore. I think it was just the most cohesive of the whiskeys. Palate and nose both showed really well. And second place will be the younger Laphroaig, just to be a little bit off the beaten path and a little bit more one-dimensional than you guys, I guess.
to be more Evan, I think you like.
Yeah.
You know, Evan, in some ways, you know, I know when you came and joined the shop, there were some customers who thought you'd pushed Hunter out of the way. And I know you've heard this, you've joked about this in the past.
I
Totally
just
not
absorbed
true.
them is what happened.
Hunter
Yeah.
went back to school and eventually decided to follow a different path. And although he's now working for the Nova Scotia Liquor Commission, but that's a whole different story. But like
Thank you,
Hunter
Zach.
would always pick the like Hunter choice. Like
Yep.
he'd always have his own criteria for it. No one understood it, but he was his own man, and I respected him for it.
I
have
called him a
much respect
contrarian
for
once,
him.
Andrew, and he
What's
lost.
that?
I called him a contrarian once, and he lost his shit. Like I think he thought I
Different
was
opinion on
implying
that?
He intentionally always picked the weird one, and I wasn't meaning that at all. But
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, you're kind of a contrarian. You've always got something a little different." And he's like, "Don't call me a contrarian. That's not what it's about." And like he would get so fucking defensive.
Well, how many of you guys were on his retirement tasting, which was
Yeah.
possibly the least well-conceived tasting we've ever put together? But we did let him run with it. And it included everything from an undrinkable rum to like that seed lip, like, I don't know, the snow pea or whatever it was.
Yeah.
That was a weird tasting, but classic Hunter.
It went from an undrinkable rum to 6 other undrinkable drinks.
Yeah. I can't wait for my retirement tasting where it's just 8 bottles of Laphroaig. It's going to be amazing.
All right, Kurt, what were your 2 favorites tonight?
The Caol Ila was a runaway for me. I loved how everything just was firing on all cylinders. And putting it in that glass, I don't know if you're the same as me, Andrew. It's still the most vibrant of the bunch, just because it's being like so focused.
Being amped up, yeah.
The Ardbeg was leading the charge for me for a while, but I just did a like speed round through it twice, and there's a slightly kind of pissy ammonia note to the Ardbeg now. I still love it. It's a style I adore, but I think I have to say number 2 is the Bowmore. So Caol Ila and the Bowmore.
Cool. Kurt, I'm reversing you a little bit here. I'm Bowmore number 1, Caol Ila number 2, with an honorable mention for the Bruichladdich. I actually think if I had to drink any of these in volume, I would probably drink the Bruichladdich. Like,
Mhm.
I'd be happy just to sit, watch a hockey game, read a book, drinking that. But if I was drinking for impact, I think the Bowmore or the Caol Ila would have taken it for me. So that was a great range. Kind of feels sad that I've got no whiskey left in front of me. Not that I don't have any that I could open into, which is a whole other thing, but that was an awesome range tonight. And I want to say thank you to Lee Hansen and Select Wine and Spirits. Or is it Icon Lee? I can't remember which one I got to give credit here for.
I'm a secret agent for both.
Secret agent for both. And a
Please,
triple
Lee.
secret agent on your own. Or not, probably not.
Absolutely. No, still got a little side hustle here and there.
Yeah, but Lee did contribute the Laphroaig 14-year tonight's range. So Lee, thank you for that. Thank you for the support on that end and for joining us tonight. You added a little extra color. I think you were our harmony tonight, as it turned out.
Well, outside influence, sure.
Yeah, the slightly nicer painting behind you, to be fair.
And your calves look great in a dress, just like Harmony.
So this is our last, other than the advent calendar, which we call a whiskey calendar for legal reasons and not an advent calendar. Other than those tastings, this is our last tasting of the year. It's been fun. We could, in theory, keep this going a little longer. If people want to chime in, we could kill the video feeds. We'll see if that is the case. But tomorrow, Evan will be confronted by me, not in a bad way, with we need to list some tastings for January and February.
Yeah, we
Evan,
do need to talk about that.
That's something to look forward to tomorrow, now that we got today's newsletter out of the way and a few other things. But we've got some things planned for in-store events. We're gonna bring back our Burns Bash for the first time in 3 years, which is a frugal in-store whiskey festival, which Lee, if you want to take part in, you can. If you don't, that's totally okay too. But it's probably going to be January 25th, mainly because I don't want to do it on my birthday.
Right.
That's a maybe. We're going to do a 30 years tasting because we're still our 30th anniversary until May 15th. And I've got a Bowmore 30, a Springbank 30, and some other stuff kicking away that we need to put into a tasting. We held on to them specifically to put into a tasting. So that's going to come. We've got some other great ideas too. There's going to be a Bruichladdich tasting because we got our once annual, which is kind of frustrating, but also amazing at the same time. Our once annual shipment of non-single cask Bruichladdich. So we've got more Black Art, Port Charlotte to play with. So keep an eye out for that. Yeah, there'll be some fun stuff trickled out in the new year, later this week or early next. And the last thing that I'll tease to you, all you folks tonight, is we've got some whiskey sponge coming and rum sponge and other sponge.
Yeah, that is so cool.
So really excited about that. That's going to start rolling into the store next week. And I'm going to hold
You have to be sponge worthy for that, right?
What's that? It
You
is
have to be sponge worthy for that, right?
Oh man, second Seinfeld reference of the night. Excellent.
We need to, Kurt, remind me about that. We need to work that into our tasting description because
That's right.
it'll be awesome. But we're going to try to pin Angus down for a tasting or two in the new year with some of those new releases. So lots of cool stuff to look forward to. Thanks everybody for taking part. I'm going to kill the video feed.